the time this broke, and so I try not to be too forceful with it. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We are going to cover 3 agenda items today. First, we're going to have a presentation from HCDC staff. I'll let them introduce their names and their roles in a moment. That will be followed by a presentation from Paycor, where we're going to learn more about the upcoming hiring fair. That staff will come up. And then lastly, we're going to revisit our CRA process revisions, and I'm going to share out some of the testing that's been done around adding a negotiation committee. So please take it away.
All right, Catherine Brunn. I am the Economic Development Specialist with HCDC. Specifically, I handle our tax incentive compliance around the CRAs for the townships as well as the Enterprise Zone program. And I also kind of project manage the CEDS process, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for Hamilton County.
Sure. Hi, good evening. I'm Catherine Fitzgerald, Senior Director with Hamilton County HCDC. Economic Development Office, and I have been working on nearly a year-long project in Norwood, primarily providing small business assistance, but also providing some additional services to the Quality of Life Initiative.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about opportunity zones this evening, and I provided each of you a copy of the presentation. And I think kind of a quick agenda, and stop me if I ever get in the weeds or I say something that you don't understand. Let's definitely make this a dialogue. We'll talk a little bit about where the opportunity zones are in Hamilton County in general. I've also provided a map of where it is in Norwood specifically. We'll talk a little bit about how the program works, and then also a little bit about how we're kind of responding to this new economic incentive and how Norwood, as well as working with HCDC, can kind of prepare for this program. So we'll get started. The first page is really just a map. Again, we went through a designation process in probably late 2017, early 2018, where HCDC was asked by the county to sit at the table and help designate opportunity zones. And essentially what we did was identify the census tracts that met the federal designation eligibility criteria, and we recommended census tracts to the governor of Ohio. He ultimately had authority over which census tracts were designated, and the great news is that a portion of Norwood was designated an opportunity zone. Sure.
Can you repeat that? When you said we recommended, who was we?
So there were a few different people in the Cincinnati region who participated in that process. Again, the Hamilton County Commissioners asked HCDC to be at the table. I know the Cincinnati Business Council was part of the process.
Cincinnati Business Committee, yes, Ready Cincinnati. And just by way of reference, a far larger number of communities are eligible nationally than were designated. So,
yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. So the way this program works is there's kind of 2 mechanisms in this program. The first is this opportunity zones designation. So this is really the geographic boundary that determines the eligible census tracts. But then in the legislation, the federal legislation, there was another mechanism created called opportunity funds. And these are the actual investment vehicle for generating investment within the geographic opportunity zones. So again, there are opportunity zones. Those are the geographic boundaries, and there are opportunity funds, which are an investment vehicle for investing in opportunity zones. And so kind of specifically the way it works is a private individual, a corporation, an organization, or a group of investors, anybody with capital gains tax liability can choose to set up an opportunity fund. And then that fund is able to make investments in eligible projects within opportunity zones. And by doing this, they're actually eligible for preferential tax treatment under federal regulations. So by investing in the zones, there are a couple benefits that we'll go over in just a second. So when I say that the opportunity funds can make eligible investments, there are a few different areas that are qualified to receive private equity investment. And again, the key to this program is that they have to be equity investments. So this is very different when it comes to economic incentives. Most of us are familiar with property tax abatements or tax credits or grants or loans that you might apply for as a municipality or as a nonprofit organization. In this program, they're looking for equity investments in these eligible businesses or business property. So again, there's no pass-through a public agency. It's private individuals or corporations making equity investments into these different areas. So the first eligible investment is business property, and most people have interpreted that now to essentially mean real estate. So you can invest private equity in a real estate project in an opportunity zone, and that could be a mixed-use development, it could be greenfield development, or it could be the redevelopment of an existing building, it could be multifamily housing, industrial properties. Really, the only property that has been identified that doesn't quite fit with the program is single-family residential, again, because most of the time it's intended to be owner-occupied. Because this is a private equity investment, they're looking for some sort of return on that investment. Another eligible investment is either partnership interest or stock within a qualified opportunity zone business. So what's great is actually HCDC sits within the opportunity zone. We have a number of small businesses in our incubator, and if those businesses chose to accept outside equity investment, they would actually be eligible for receiving that through this opportunity zone program. So again, the two eligible investments are really kind of business property, real estate, or partnership interest and stock. So investing in real property or investing in a business. The second page is really just kind of showing that funnel of first, an investor has to create that opportunity fund, and then the fund is what actually invests in either this real estate or the business. By choosing to pursue opportunity fund investing, there are three primary benefits for these private investors. The first is a temporary deferral of their capital gains tax. So say I've sold my P&G stock, I've made $1 million off of that stock, that's now capital gains. I choose to create an opportunity fund and invest that in property redevelopment in Norwood. By doing that, I actually don't have to pay my capital gains tax when I liquidate my P&G stock. I actually get to defer that until December 31st, 2026. So that's a really great deferral period and the first benefit. The second benefit is based on how long you hold your investment within an opportunity fund. So the first, if you hold your money in a fund for 5 years and it's meeting all of the eligibility requirements, you actually get a 10% reduction in that capital gains tax when you pay it in 2026. If you hold that investment for 7 years, you actually get a 15% reduction in your taxes when you pay in 2026. The third benefit of the program for investors is really kind of the keynote of this program. If an investor holds their investment in a fund for 10 years, they've again met all the eligibility requirements, any new capital gains that have been accrued through that holding period due to the appreciation of either their stock in a business or the real property is actually tax-free. So at the end of the day, you might get a 15% reduction in your taxes on your capital gains, and you don't have to pay any future capital gains tax. So again, if you invest $1 million in redeveloping a property here in Norwood, 10 years later you sell it for $3 million, that $2 million of capital gains that you've accrued is tax-free. So really the intent of the program is to create preferential tax treatment for really revitalizing properties and investing in small businesses in low to moderate income communities, and helping take some of the risk out of that equation so that people are more likely to do it. That's kind of the intent behind the program.
Catherine, just one point of clarity.
Sure.
When you're talking about taxes, we're still talking about federal dollars.
Correct. So this does refer to federal taxes. There are a few pieces of legislation in Ohio, as well as other states around the country that are trying to kind of mimic the program or offer other sorts of benefits. Ohio is specifically considering, I believe, a 10% reduction in your personal income tax if you used opportunity funds, and I believe it got passed in year one of the program. So if you elect on your tax returns that you are an opportunity fund, Ohio would take 10% off that personal income tax. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the way it works, and I'd be happy to share additional information on that.
Would you please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the next page really just kind of breaks everything I just told you into a timeline so that it's a little bit more tangible. So it kind of walks you through this pre-event of where you've sold a stock or an asset and you've triggered a capital gains, all the way up to being able to claim that 10-year tax benefit. And there's just a couple of things I want to point out. So again, I mentioned that there's this 7-year tax benefit, which would reduce your taxes. In order to be eligible for that, investors have to have their money invested in a fund by the end of 2019. So I think what we expect to see is a fair amount of activity between now and the end of the year as people look to put their money in a fund and collect that first 7-year tax benefit. In order to get the next 5-year tax benefit, people have to have their money in a fund by December 31st, 2021. And again, that's just putting their money in a fund. The fund then has an allocated amount of time to deploy their funds into an actual project in an opportunity zone. So while they might put their money in a fund in December, they might have until March to actually identify and support a project. So the opportunity zones designation for communities does sunset in 2026 unless it's extended by Congress or another act of Congress. But investors are eligible to elect to get these tax benefits through 2047. So essentially, they could invest in Norwood in 2026, and they would still be able to get that 10-year tax benefit if they held it for that long. But again, this designation currently is set up to sunset in 2026. So all of that to say, Norwood's an opportunity zone community. What does that actually mean? And I'd really like to have this conversation because I think there was a lot of speculation at the beginning of this program that it was going to kind of open the floodgates to private investment in low to moderate income communities. And I think what we've seen is a little bit different. So to be an opportunity zone community, again, it's really just a designation, a federal designation that you are eligible to receive this private investment through opportunity funds. But it really gives no other preferential treatment. You're not more eligible for certain grants from the government. You're not, a little bit more competitive on some other factors. Again, it's just a designation, and it might encourage somebody to invest. Say they were looking at a neighboring community, and they can just move their project over a little bit to be in a zone. It's not making development necessarily happen. It's just making good projects look even a little bit better and speed them up a little bit, I think is the reality of what we've seen in this program. But that doesn't mean that there isn't investment that is out there that could be attracted to the communities here in Hamilton County. So I think a couple of the ways to think about preparing for this program is to begin identifying properties and businesses that are eligible to receive opportunity funds. So you want to look at assets in your community that could potentially have a return over 5 to 10 years. It looks like those assets are going to appreciate in order to attract those investors. Also identifying and marketing those potential investment opportunities out there in the community to those potential investors. And then also continuing to support any opportunity zone and opportunity fund projects through your normal course of economic development activities. For example, at HCDC, if we found out about an opportunity fund project, we could go ahead and support that through an enterprise zone as we normally would any, project with jobs and capital investment. And the way that we've kind of approached these 3 points at HCDC is first, again, just like this, doing a little bit of education with our communities. How does this program work? How does it fit into the economic development picture? How do you identify or think about potential investment in projects? We've also had conversations with the resource network providers out there, whether it's the Minority Business Collaborative or the Small Business Development Center, as well as engaging in conversations with brokers, developers. Again, how do you identify what are the opportunities out there for investment, and how can we all kind of be a little bit more educated on identifying those? The second piece of our strategy has been more planning. So we've actually, through some of our data in our office, have looked through each of the opportunity zone communities and identified potential areas where projects could occur, or maybe where we could do a little bit of aggregation of property in order to create a little bit more of a marketable property. And then also just responding to requests as they occur. We've probably engaged with 5 or 6 potential investors to this point. A couple of the real estate people, honestly, are looking for really easy projects where they can get a quick win before they tackle more difficult projects later in the opportunity zone process. We've also engaged with a few people that are really interested in business development or business investing. And I actually think that's kind of been a little bit more of our sweet spot. We've really had fruitful conversations with potential business investments. And then our third piece has really been marketing. So So on the HCDC website, we have a page dedicated to opportunity zones, and on that page, we have produced what we call a prospectus highlighting potential properties within Hamilton County. And then again, similar to this, we've been engaging in panels with the professional community, with our community partners, to just talk about this program and start seeing if we can identify some potential investors out there in the market. The last piece I want to highlight is that the state of Ohio, through the Ohio Development Services Agency, has actually created and launched their own Opportunity Zones website. And this is a really great kind of landing spot for the state where you can upload community information. You can also submit projects, potential projects. We have a few of our incubator tenants who've actually posted themselves on this website to try and attract investment. And then it's a place where investors can look for potential projects within Ohio. So this is kind of probably the next phase of our strategy. We'd love to work with you to help collect that information so that we can populate the website. And similarly, kind of keep an eye out for any potential real estate or businesses that we could help put on that website.
So just a couple quick things that I just want to highlight really quickly, because there's been confusion in some of the communities that have Opportunity Zone designation. One being, there's a perception that there's a fund sitting there, like a federal fund. There's not a fund. These are private investors who create an opportunity fund. So there isn't a pot of money just sitting and waiting. So really, one of the tactics is to attract investors. The other thing that I just want to point out, even though Catherine said it, I just kind of want to underscore it, is these investors want a return on their investment. So they're, less likely to have interest in something that isn't going to have a return. So as you can imagine, in Greater Cincinnati, when you look at the Opportunity Zone map, the large map that Catherine had, downtown is going to attract more investment. The two coasts are going to attract more investment nationally. So those were just a couple of things that I just wanted to kind of point out, that no, there's not a fund sitting there. And even though there's an investment advantage, these investors still want a return on their investment. So a little bit lower risk projects, obviously they're going to be attracted to. So
I have one question, well, actually a couple. I'm looking at the Hamilton County map. Is this College Hill the city, North College Hill as well, or just College Hill?
I believe it's just the neighborhood of College Hill
that's
in Cincinnati.
City of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the difficult piece with this is that it really is along the boundaries of census tracts. So some
Right.
of them are very strange boundary lines.
Right. So it might not be the whole community.
Right. So you can see that in the map I handed out specifically with Norwood.
Right.
That it goes just a couple blocks above Williams Avenue, does not quite reach the plaza with Kroger and many of the small businesses there. But it does include some assets like Xavier and the property that they have over there. School Outfitters, has been a very active business in this community. They're located within the zone. UDF, obviously, a great corporate partner here, and HCDC also is in the zone. So I just wanted to highlight just a couple of good assets that are located in the zone. But I do think there are some challenges. Again, because of where the boundary lines fall, you can see there's a lot of single-family residential that does sit in the zone, which just might mean that Norwood's opportunities are a little bit more targeted. But I actually think that's a really great potential feature of this program, is that you might have a few opportunities that can really be created as quality opportunities versus kind of inundating people with 100 different things, and then they have to figure out, what's of quality or what's actually going to earn a return, and so forth.
Any other questions?
So, yeah, I'll just say that this, learning about the business investment aspect of it, which I did not know about, I knew about the capital gains, being able to be excluded. I guess it makes even more sense now why, the opportunity zone is here, especially since HCDC is included in it, and hopefully that can spur some great investment into businesses that start.
And because it's the program is a little bit confusing for communities, we are very happy to be a resource to you, as well as the other communities that have this designation. So.
And again, As I mentioned, we've really been trying to educate our resource partners out there. So I think there's a couple of questions. If you get approached about opportunity zones in a council meeting or just in your normal course of business, whether it's a real property owner or whether it's a small business, the immediate question I would make sure that they understand is, again, that this is equity investing. So if you're a property owner, you can't just have somebody like help you fix up your building. There would actually need to be a transfer of that property. So that person would have to purchase your property from you and then do the redevelopment. Now there's some really legal lawyery things that you can do to still be a partial owner in that business, but you would still have to dilute your equity interest in that building. Similar to a business, I think a lot of businesses, many small businesses are always looking for funding, but in this case, it's an equity position in your business, which means that you are gonna have to be comfortable giving up some share of ownership of your business. So I think those are the potential answers that kind of help vet through these conversations, is really making sure that people understand this is equity investing. And then, with our own business incubation team, we've been talking a lot about having a little education around what does equity investing actually mean? What does that entitle somebody to in your business? How do you negotiate that contract with that owner? So again, I think what's great is this program has revealed a lot of need for education around some of these different components. And to me, of course, we would absolutely love to see investment in Hamilton County, but I just think the fact that it spurred a lot of these conversations of how do we better educate our businesses about equity investing, or how do we start to identify strategic properties for redevelopment, those are all very positive conversations in my mind as an outpouring of this program.
Anything? I have just one more question.
Yeah.
Thank you for emphasizing the equity piece. I think that's a really good, clear, go-to explanation. How would the city know, or how would council know if there is a private party that wants to take advantage of the fund?
You wouldn't necessarily. And this has been a big, I think a lot of communities have reacted very strongly to this. So according to the IRS regulations, opportunity funds are self-certified. So that means if I'm liquidating stock, I put it in an opportunity fund. I actually just, on my federal income taxes, say I have done opportunity fund investing. So there's no paperwork they have to submit to, Norwood. There's nothing they have to submit to us. There's no paperwork they really have to submit to anybody except to say, yes, I did it. Now, of course, if there are questions, the IRS will audit them and find out if they did something right or wrong. But one of the things that we've kind of been encouraging our communities to think about is, Norwood has a CRA in place. There should be, if there's an application process around that for property redevelopment, maybe just put a checkbox on that application that says, are you utilizing opportunity funds? Really, that's the only kind of safeguard or even kind of data collection piece that you might be able to leverage to understand if somebody is using opportunity funds. And it allows you to engage in that conversation a little bit further. We've been kind of looking at it ourselves around our CRA programs and enterprise zones. Like, should we put something in there? If you're using opportunity funds, then it means X, Y, and Z. I know the city of Cincinnati is looking, they're very concerned about this and thinking about how can they put some potential, railings or in place to help kind of guide the investment. I'm sure you've heard that a lot of the other pieces of this program, they think it's just going to accelerate gentrification of a lot of our communities, and by that I mean specifically displacement, without necessarily some of the equity or affordable housing components. So those are very good concerns of this program, and I think it's something we all just need to keep an eye on as it moves forward. There's one really good resource out there. Smart Growth America is kind of maybe I would call them like an economic development, community development think tank. They've put out a lot of really good information around how communities can think about this through a social equity lens or a business investing lens. I'd be, again, happy to share those resources with you. So there is a lot of conversation around this in the communities. Again, it's also going to be market driven. These are people who are looking for a normal real property return. So the market is also going to kind of help, for better or for worse, guide this program.
I was just going to add that, for example, Madisonville has a designation there, and some of the folks are very concerned about that. They are seeing a lot of investment, and they've had planned investment, and they have a redevelopment plan. So they're a little bit nervous about an outside investor just kind of swooping in and doing something that maybe is a little bit outside their plan. So, that can be an issue as well.
I would also encourage you, as you're getting building permits, that's another place where you could potentially put that checkbox. Are you using opportunity funds? Really, if you think about your processes in the normal business of economic development or property redevelopment or inspections or zoning, anything where there might be an application that somebody has to submit to do something, you could put a little checkbox that says, are you utilizing opportunity funds? And again, that may not prevent them from doing it, but it will at least give you an indication that something might be happening.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
So our contact information is in here. As Catherine said, we're happy to be a resource on any question, or again, if you have investors that are approaching you and you feel like you need a little bit extra knowledge in the room, we're happy to assist.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was just going to add, Councilwoman Stevenson, that we will be wrapping up our broader work in Norwood in the
absolutely.
fall. So if you would like, we'd be happy to come September, October timeframe and just kind of give you a summary of the work that we've done.
We would love that if we could plan for October.
Perfect.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we're going to have Paycor come on up. Thank you both for being here. If you would introduce yourselves and your project with the city.
Yeah, I will go ahead and get us started. My name is Patricia Regal. I am a corporate recruiter over at Paycor. I have been with the company now for about 1.5 years and have about 8 years of recruiting experience that I brought to the company.
Wonderful. My name is Morgan Shelton. I'm also a recruiter over at Paycor in our Client Services Division, and I've been with the company about 1 year.
So today we're going to be talking about some ongoing efforts that we have with the city of Norwood, as we are located just off the Lateral. That's where our corporate headquarters are, and Morgan's going to dive into our Career Day event that we have going on that we've been promoting throughout the community, and she's going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing behind the scenes.
Great. So first of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and speak today. If you're unfamiliar with Paycor, essentially what we do is help businesses with their HR technology, such as payroll and benefits. And as we continue to grow, we realize there is a great opportunity for people in our community, because at this point we are growing at about a 20% year after year, and we're forecasted to continue that trend for the following 5 years. So with that growth in mind, we are hosting Paycor Career Day, which will take place on August 20th, which is a Tuesday. And the event will start at 4:30 p.m. and will run through 7 o'clock, at which at any point attendees can come during that duration. You can pre-register for the event if you go to www.paycor.com and click on the careers button, and then see our available positions, and you scroll all the way to the bottom to Paycor Career Day, which is under the category Other. And you can register online or on your phone, or if you don't have the resources to register in advance, you can show up the day of and we will accommodate you to get acquainted with an individual who will help you register for the event. So every attendee the day of the event will have an introductory interview with a manager. A member from the talent acquisition team will greet the members at the door and talk to them about their career interest and their level of experience, and make sure they're acquainted with the proper managers. And we will have managers from every department, and we will interview for every available position that we have. We also attended the Norwood Parade recently to start getting the word out in the community, and we will continue to market our efforts over the following weeks starting Friday, so tomorrow. We're going to post everything that we have on all of the community's Facebook pages. We will be featured in the August edition of the Norwood Star as well, and then we'll also have everything posted on our social media pages and LinkedIn. Any questions?
I just want to make sure everyone watching and here knows that you didn't just attend the Norwood Day Parade. Paycor sponsored the parade, and so thank you
Yes.
for that support of the city. It's a wonderful event. We participated, and lots of people from around the community did, so thank you. I'm really excited about this opportunity. It's something that I've been able to work with your team on for almost a year now. And so I'm really glad to see how the promotion has come together and that it's going to allow everyone who shows up to have a conversation. So people can begin to register online. Are they just parking anywhere when they arrive?
We have designated parking areas and we will have signs, but essentially the parking lot will be cleared and anywhere around there is fine as well.
Okay. And so when people prepare to come, are they bringing anything with them, or is that all through registration ahead of time?
It's through the registration ahead of time. They can submit their resume then, or they can bring a hard copy. And if they don't have a resume, then we are currently partnering with, which we'll announce over the next few days, with an organization that'll help attendees prepare in advance.
Wonderful. So when if I were to go to register and I felt like I needed that preparation help, that's when I would find out how to connect with that?
Yeah, well, it'll actually be posted on our social media, but
Okay.
it will be heavily marketed.
Excellent. I'm so happy to hear that. And so if I'm coming the day of and bringing my resume, how many copies do I need to bring?
One.
Just one?
Just
Okay.
one.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other questions? Comments?
Just thanks for doing it. It's great to have that opportunity open for the
Absolutely.
community and for anybody who can come in.
We had several people.
Yeah.
Okay. We
There you
had
go.
several people that went out. We had a team that went out to actually promote the event at the parade. And so it was really neat to see the people in Norwood kind of positively reacting to us just kind of spreading that awareness that, hey, there are opportunities in your backyard and we're welcoming you to come in and meet with our team. We want to hear about you. We want to learn about you and your talents. So that was actually really refreshing and positive. And I think the biggest thing we're excited about is just spreading some awareness about an awesome organization that's in Cincinnati, and it's not necessarily downtown, it's in their backyard. So,
Yes, it's in Norwood.
yes.
Yes. And additionally, we will be going around to local businesses over the next several weeks and dropping off flyers so that it can continue to spread the word throughout the community.
Excellent. So can you maybe give a couple of thoughts towards, like, what's your normal timeline for hiring? If people come on the 20th, how long of a process might they be entering?
So I would say on average 30 days would really be the most. So if someone were to actually attend the event, we have a starting class on September 9th, and it could be realistic for them to join that class or October class. And everyone will receive communication one way or the other after the event, and then additionally individuals may be contacted for more face-to-face interviews,
Okay.
which is usually at one stage and done.
Okay.
And we get back to them within typically 5 business days is our max. So it is a quick turnaround time. It's something that our talent acquisition team has been working hard towards, just to ensure that we're keeping that communication line open.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the event occurs, I'd love to invite you to come back and let us know what the turnout was like, as well as what the new number is in terms of Norwood employees working for Paycor.
Yeah.
That's one of the unique features of the agreement the company has with the city, and so I look forward to hearing about even more progress.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we'd love to.
Thank you both
very
for being
much.
here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
That's great. Very good time. Okay, so the last part of our agenda is our CRA process review. We started talking about this a while ago, and one of the things we last spoke about was the opportunity. Yep, thank you. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. But yeah, one of the opportunities we discussed was creating a negotiation committee. One of the things that came out of the state office was the idea of having a set group of people who review potential projects as part of the decision-making timeline. And so had a unique opportunity. Wow, it's August 1st, so late June, I think, maybe early July. I got a call from an organization out in California that expressed interest in buying a building here and moving their operations here. And when that happened, they said something that I was not expecting, but ended up being a really cool opportunity to kind of test this idea. They said, we'd like to talk to the community. And because they weren't making a commitment, I intentionally reached out to some city departments, some leaders in our community, really across sectors. So school representation, community representation, and we had a conversation. It was a very interesting process to try and test because I didn't know the organization, but I thought we should at least try the process and see how it works. And so a couple of things I observed in terms of, do we move forward with a recommendation to create a negotiation committee, and I'm using that broadly because the concept coming from the state is really to have a designated group other than the body of council kind of review these proposed projects. So one is timing. So the original timeline the group was coming changed. And so where I thought I had a week to notice this opportunity, the people I wanted to invite, it was more like 2 business days. And so that was a factor I thought could be off-putting in terms of, could we actually get all the representation we need? When I shared this idea a while back with the law department, some of their feedback was, if we were to put this into our process, which is an ordinance, and then we, for instance, don't have representation from schools, would we then be in violation of the thing we set up? And so another observation I had was, maybe we could make a recommendation that says all of these sectors or types of groups are invited. Not that they have to be present. That way, given whatever timeline, there's a little bit of ability to be nimble. The third thing that I thought was really interesting, it kind of underscored readiness. So as the conversation unfolded, it was clear to the people, some of the people in the room, this organization really didn't know a lot about our area. They're not here. And so it was almost, in my mind's eye, it could be meaningful for us to think about some type of readiness assessment. If an organization wants to come and be here, what are they bringing that makes them ready for us and makes us ready for them? It's one thing to just express interest, it's one thing to express interest in building out a business or building out a building to meet your business needs. It's another thing to think about, how does that match the needs of our city? Or are you wanting to put something here that might actually meet needs from surrounding communities? And so some communities have a community agreement where the city itself has described, we want partnerships that look like this. Partnerships meaning we want to attract businesses or organizations. We didn't really discuss that before, but that kind of came up as an idea, maybe something we could circle back to. And then I think the last thing that came to mind as I was testing this idea out was just thinking about how to kind of underscore opportunities to advocate for equitable change. And so I thought about this a lot because one thing the organization kept saying was, we're self-funded. We're not coming in asking for an abatement per se. We're just asking for a perception, how would the community receive us? And I thought, well, that was kind of curious. I mean, if you want to show up somewhere and have money to do that, does that mean you're more or less welcome? And so a lot of things came to mind for me that I thought could be helpful to dovetail back to. But I wanted to share, I had tested that out, and as of right now, I don't think a prescribed, it needs to be this person from this organization would necessarily work. But I do think there might be some wins in saying we want to recommend that these sectors or these types of organizations are invited to a conversation or discussion. So, any thoughts about that? Have you had any new ruminations on the process?
No, I mean, I like the idea of potentially putting some kind of, I don't know exactly what you describe, because you're talking about something in addition to a group that approves the
Correct.
thing. So it's almost like a town hall.
Town call,
kind of thing, or,
matchmaking,
right,
a trial.
which is kind of interesting, just to talk with different parts of the community. I also think it's an interesting idea for the city as a whole to think about what kind of businesses the community would like to have here, and see where that led. I don't know where that would lead, you know, but it's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just say when it comes to the negotiating committee was something that was in the state the state recommendations as well when it comes to this, that, you know, it shouldn't just be, you know, I'll just use our example, the mayor and safety service director hearing everything, receiving everything, and then all of a sudden the last day when it needs to get approved, come to council and say, approve this. Like, there should be representation from, you know, the school district, from council, from you know, the law department, the city administration, of course, maybe an HCDC person. So, you know, I love the idea of going through to create this negotiating process, and especially putting it in an ordinance so that it is there, that they have to come to this committee before they, you know, come to council. You know, there's specific people that I think that we should, like, actually designate in the ordinance, in my personal opinion, and, you know, that would be at least, like, you know, one council member. It would be the school treasurer, and you could even put there that, like, for, like, the school treasurer, you could put the school treasurer or their designee, but
I like that.
the school treasurer has there's so much importance to that position because they understand, like, everything that's going on with school finances, and that's one of only the two positions I think that the actual school board hires. I think they hire their superintendent, and I think they hire the school treasurer. Could be wrong on that, but it's just a very important position at the school, and I think that it would be good to have them designated. And there's probably other ones too, like, you know, the law director or assistant law director, or certain things. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want, let's just say that we ever got big enough where we had a paralegal or something. You know, I'd really want the law director to be there, you know, if we decide that that's what it is. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not opposed to having specific people mentioned.
Or their designate.
Yeah,
I like that option. I think that
That's interesting.
is a good pairing of the two. It's not saying it has to be that one person, although the preference for that person is stated. And that way, if we do put this recommendation forward and it becomes the law, then it doesn't stall a discussion part of the process if that particular person can't be there.
Yeah. And I think the other important thing just to note so that everybody kind of understands is, in general, this committee, the reason why this committee is so important is that it allows the developer or whoever wants to come in to speak to a cross-section of the community, but without it having to be in public or on public record or what have you, because a lot of these things are business kind of, you know, they're not things that businesses would want to release at this point. And of course, this committee doesn't approve, you know, necessarily anything. I mean, this committee is just, they listen, and then I don't exactly know how it would work. But from my understanding, it's not necessarily like a public thing. But there's also not a majority, like there would never be a majority of council members on there. There would never be a majority of school board members on there. It wouldn't be a majority of any body that actually takes an official action. So it's just more to help the process along and help kind of provide assurances so that once it gets to the public body that, hey, there's been serious back and forth on this, and we're not trying to negotiate with Paycor with them at the podium and us here.
Right.
You know, that there's already been those serious
It did feel
discussions
that way
before
a little while ago.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So no, that's all. That's all I kind of say about that. And but yeah, I'm really happy to hear though that there's some stuff moving forward with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate both your perspectives. I think it's really critical to have the discussion space that's it's not our decision-making body alone, because there's stuff sometimes we're not privy to. I mean, we all have different functions in life and have our purview on things, so I'm glad we have a way to think through that. I will reach out to the law department to get that language looked at. The other piece that just came up today in Catherine Brunn's presentation was the suggestion to change the application for either permits and or the CRA application to add an item that says, you know, are you using opportunity fund? I think that is a good idea to put forth in terms of recommendations on how we change this process as well, because as I understood her, that could be the only way, if answered truthfully, the city would know that program is being used in the city. What did you think about that suggestion?
So for me, I guess I was kind of I was confused at that one specific point to understand, like, you know, what is the importance of like a city. I mean, I didn't understand the importance, like when she was given the Madisonville example, that, oh my gosh, somebody might swoop in and do something against what our, you know, internal plan is, whatever Madisonville group there is. But the thing is, even without opportunity zones, like, I mean, people can invest, and it may not exactly fit to your plan, I'm sure that for the most part, it just seems like that was a concern that I didn't quite understand. But specifically, I was curious what your thoughts were on like what would be the benefit to the city to know that, hey, this project is or they're intending to use an opportunity fund to make it happen.
Well, one of the first questions I wrote down as her presentation was unfolding was if Ohio passes that tax reduction for personal income, would there be an expectation that municipalities do something similar? So I think it would be good to understand, is some of the development happening in our city as a result of this fund opportunity? I think we've been, as a committee and as a city, thinking about, struggling through, and doing a little bit at a time development. And so I think it would be nice just to document, yep, it's happening, rather than wondering what is being built over there and how come nobody knows. I think one of the peculiarities about the timing of this is we have really such a small, I feel we have a small footprint as an administration presence in this conversation. Like, we don't have an economic development person full-time who's really steering this. And so I think if we were to make a change to that application, it could give some document to kind of say, okay, there is interest here, and it doesn't necessarily put a demand on a person. It's more like we just have the data now to know this is happening. I guess I feel like if a community, if a city has gone through the work of creating a plan, and then there is an investment that's not in agreement with the plan, I would kind of wonder about that developer or that individual's intent towards my jurisdiction. Like, why would you come in and build something if it's not part of the plan? You're entering into a community that's gone through the task, the financial investment of making one. And so I think that too would be another reason in my mind's eye to just kind of have a feel for what's going on.
Sure. Yeah, and when I was talking about specifically about that Madisonville example, my vision is that somebody was, in the plan that, was written 3 or 4 years ago, they have this tract of land, designated as they think that's going to be a good place for apartments. And the person comes and says, well, I'd like to do something different, want an office tower or what have you. And so, but that could happen with or without the opportunity zones. And then I guess one example would be this Xavier, you were at the Planning Commission meeting where this happened, but they amended their PUD to, instead of having a hotel that they were potentially looking at building, it would be to the west, to the west of the, that medical office building that's there, right there off Lexington. They're going to build another student housing, essentially. And so, to me, it's like, well, Xavier came in, and when they first built the plan, we were told, hey, hotel that's $150,000, $200,000 a year in hotel tax revenue. So they come in and say, oh, we're going to do the student housing instead. And so, the Planning Commission approved it. I mean, it's not like they were, they've done something under, they came to the city and said, hey, can we amend the plan? And I imagine that if another developer came, if we had a master plan and somebody wanted to do something different, I would imagine something similar would happen. But yeah, it's a great point though about the municipalities losing income tax. So if the state there could be an expectation, or even could be a law that's passed by the state that says this money can't be taxed by municipalities for capital gains. I mean, so yeah, I think it's fine to add the box the more you talk about that. And
it would be a recommendation to do that. I mean, we don't govern that forum, but I think adding that recommendation at the same time we add the recommendation to include the negotiation committee would be a good concerted effort.
No, that makes sense. So are we going to, so I know we're going to talk about the negotiating committee. Are we by chance going to talk about any other part of the process? Did you have it already planned out? Or?
That was the only part of the process that I anticipated talking about.
Okay, perfect. I do want to make sure that we at least touch on, after we're done with the negotiating committee part, touch on the committee that's supposed to actually review the CRAs afterwards. And council had an expectation to do some nominations, as well as the administration and planning commission. And I know that there's one name I've heard thrown around. I haven't heard any others. So,
are you talking about the appointments to the housing tax incentive review? Yes, I think that's what it was called. The Tax Incentive Review Council.
Yes, so that's, yep.
Yes, that is a correct recollection. We are responsible for nominations. I hear you saying you would like to go there. I feel like I captured your comments, both of you, regarding the negotiation committee. that having the discussion is a good idea, being able to understand our proposed projects here aligned with business interests in terms of residents as consumers or the area in general, and then making sure we do have representation from prescribed entities, naming either a function or their designee.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what I'll be putting forth in our recommendation, as well as the change to the permit application and the CRA application overall, to add a line now that we are fully informed we are opportunity zone, to say, are you using the opportunity fund? Yes or no?
Gotcha. So as we're talking about the negotiating committee, has the
Okay.
city administration expressed support for doing this, or have you heard any feedback from them?
I have not heard any feedback. I have made our building commissioner aware, and I believe that HCDC stays in contact as well. So I'm pretty 92.5% positive that both the building department and the administration leads are informed.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think I would love to have this committee at least talk about, before it gets presented to council, if there's time to, once you have the actual makeup that you want to have of the negotiating committee or that proposed makeup, I'd love if we can to have, a small agenda item on that, just to kind of talk about that, to see if is that really everybody, could there be other people to add, so.
We can definitely touch base with that again. I'm going to, just as a point of clarity, build from the suggestions that the state has. So I think
Okay.
that we all have that same document. So if you feel like there's somebody missing, let me know. But that's what I'll work from, and then any proposed language that comes back to us from working with the law department, I can bring it to our next meeting before we present it to council.
Perfect, yeah. Yeah, and I do think, and I just want to express appreciation for you working on this. I do think it's going to be important for us to get this done before the next city administration takes place, because I think I don't want it to look like we're attacking any specific, if we were to wait till the early next year, I don't want it to look like, oh my gosh, this person got elected, now council's trying to do this. I'd like to rather just get this done now, because it's really a good practice to have in place, and I think it's really going to benefit the city strongly, and the school district, as we move forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that our larger metropolitan area has a good groundswell around defining how agreements work with cities. So I'm hopeful that as a council, we'll have good traction for discussing it and landing in a good place.
Perfect.
Okay, so with regard to the nominations, what do you want to discuss there?
Yeah, I just want to kind of emphasize that, I don't think we've had nominations yet. I might be wrong, from the city administration or the planning commission, but we really can't say anything to them because we don't have our nominations from council yet on that either. And I think it would be good for us to go ahead and make sure that we, as a council, it's not necessarily this body, it's council doing it, but I'd love for us to have a list of names or some names that we could throw out to council to approve, so that we can then get the other two groups to approve their people. I think it's like 2, and 2, if I recall correctly, 2 from the planning commission, 2 from us, 2 from the city administration. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're in compliance with the state ordinance and with the ordinance that we passed. Not we, but previous councils have passed.
Yeah. So we did, I believe it was you and I, James, that were, I'll say it was me. I think we discussed this back in December.
Yeah.
I did put forth a name at a regular meeting of council. I think we were made aware before a regular meeting, but after this committee had met in a month. At that time, I recommended Ben Eilerman. I don't know if he would still be interested or not, but based on what I recall from the function and know of his skills, I think he'd still be qualified. I can circle back and check with him. Did you have someone else in mind?
Not anybody that I have asked to. I definitely have people in the back of my head that I think would be great for it, but nobody that I've actually asked. So to make sure that they might be interested for me to even submit their name, so I wouldn't want to.
If you would, if you'll share with me, then I can just contact the people and then bring it back to our committee. That way our committee can make a recommendation if we'd like. It was introduced at a regular meeting of council, but I would happily have more discussion here. I think being able to put forth a recommendation and name why a person's qualified to serve on the role would be important. So if we want to discuss that here again before any of us brings it up again at a regular session, I'm okay with putting that on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Great idea.
So if you have someone in mind, let me know.
I will.
And your reasons for why. I'll reach out to them and let them know, hey, here's what needs to happen. If you're interested, let us know, and then we can discuss that at our next meeting.
Great.
Okay. Well, that takes us through, I think, everything. Anything else you guys got related to any of these three topics?
Well, just a quick question back on that last one. If there's somebody listening at home that was potentially interested in serving and wanted to submit their name, how might they be able to do that?
I'm so glad you said that, because the other thing I was going to say is once this agenda was published, I realized there wasn't an area for public comments or feedback or engagement. And so if someone is listening at home and would like to be considered as we make a nomination, and I do believe it's the Tax Incentive Review Council, I could be wrong, but either way, you can email me. It's lstevenson@norwoodohio.gov, and that is a really easy way. If that email was not captured, you can leave me a message by calling the Clerk of Council's office. That is 513-458-4594. 458-4594, and I can either call you back or email you as well. But moving forward, I will make sure I double check to make sure we've got space for engagement or comments as well. Anything else? All right, well, thank you both for your attendance tonight. See you next time.
Thank you.